Good morning, everyone, and thank you guys so much for joining. We had a ton of huge earnings over the past week, and today is no different. Enphase is one of the biggest moving stocks so far today. They reported earnings yesterday, and their stock is just exploding. They closed yesterday at around $173, and now they're all the way at 205. So this one is definitely one to keep on your radar. I really like Enphase for the long term, and they are a solar stock, and it'll definitely move up a lot of other solar stocks like RUN.
Yeah, and RUN's actually doing very well this morning, also kind of breaking that high of yesterday morning and actually running up pretty well. And if we look at RUN on the daily, with them running up again here, they're getting pretty close to that $60 resistance. And I feel like that they could get a nice little pop up today with the way that they're moving in pre-market, especially with the way the whole sector's been. I really hope that these other stocks continue up as well. And I'm really hoping some of these other stocks around support like Zoom and Peloton can maybe get a boost off of this. I know they're not in the same sector or anything, but I'm really hoping that I see that they're kind of like in the same setup. So I'm hoping that they kind of get a boost up over the next couple weeks as well.
Well, how about Boeing? They've been doing not bad, but not good. Like they've just been consolidating for months between like 210 and like 240 or so. Like they just can't break out. They can't break down either. And their earnings definitely were not the best today. And they're up, which is good at least. But they just like what I mean, Tom. Like they need like a pop back up or like at least to like some sort of catalyst to like light the fire.
Yeah, we just need some good news for Boeing. And unfortunately, we've just seen bad news over the past couple of years with those problems with the jets. And now I just saw some more stuff come out with them. If we go to CNBC, they post a loss as the Dreamliner flaws drive up their cost. I know they had some flaws come out just a couple weeks ago. Apparently, that's affecting the earnings, which is definitely not good to see. And it's like you said, it is a bit of a surprise to see Boeing actually green, but some red is coming in here at open. But I'm with you. They just need something to turn them around. And I'm getting pretty worried in the short term. If they break this support, it would be pretty worrisome. But as of right now, it seems like the support's holding up. So hopefully they get that good news pretty soon.
There we go. So there's actually a lot of stocks that are moving so far today. I know we covered Enphase, which is up basically 20%, which is crazy to hear. So 20% on Enphase. Spotify's up almost 9%. I know we talked about this one, last week or 2 weeks ago, and it's awesome to see that one moving. I like this one for the long term. RUN is up 5.5%. That's awesome. Tesla's not looking too bad, and then even NIO's hanging in there.
Yeah, look at Tesla actually coming back up. I hope that these guys recover up. I know lots of people were bullish on them, even yesterday. So hopefully they continue up again. And, they hit that high yesterday around 1,094. And, a lot of traders have been saying $1,200 by the end of the week. And I'm not sure I'm targeting 1,200 or not, but if we're able to break that high of day today, I think that it is a possibility. But, in the end of the day, I think it's going to matter what happens here over the next 30 minutes. So hopefully Tesla gets a nice pop back and then maybe that uptrend will continue. But, honestly, if I had to give my honest opinion, I kind of think Tesla might kind of consolidate at least below 1,094 today. If they ran up again, that would just be mind blowing.
Yeah, it's a tough one to predict, when especially when you have it at all-time highs. It's one of the most volatile stocks in the market, plus when it's going crazy. So it should be fun to watch either way. But Tesla's had an amazing month, and it's great to see. And I know someone was like drawing comparisons between like Tesla and Bitcoin. Like even if we look at the new Bitcoin ETF, BITO, that one is selling off a little bit. It's down 5% on the day.
Yeah, it really is actually. This actually had a pretty bad gap down. It's actually the lowest that the ETF has ever been. So pretty interesting here, down to $38. And this is a pretty significant move down, Mike. I don't know how much the Bitcoin futures are down. Looks like they're down around 5% as well. And, Bitcoin looked like it was starting to break out right there. Like we made all-time highs. But as of right now, it seems like it faked a lot of people out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the same time, though, like when it has a jump from like 40K to like 67K, I feel like it kind of like has to pull back, like kind of like with DWAC.
Yeah, definitely. I know that we were talking about that a lot whenever it started happening as well. It's just, I know so many people were probably buying into that ETF right then, looking for a type of explosion. And I'm sure a lot of people got got screwed over on that one. But I mean, you're right. I mean, we pretty much, we had a little bit of consolidation there for 1 month, but we pretty much went straight up from 30,000 to 67,000. Like, that's a pretty good 100% jump right there.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so I just want to welcome everyone to the stream. So thank you guys all for joining, and welcome Mac, Jamie, Jesse, Spacely, Vicky, and Alex. Thank you guys so much for joining. Let us know what stocks you are watching. We can definitely take a look at them. Spacely says, top of the morning, gang. Welcome to the stream, Spacely. Let us know what you're watching. He said SHIB is running, so I know there's still a lot of hype with, that Shiba Inu coin, which is good. I know Bitcoin itself is tanking down a little bit, but, it is what it is, so that's good to see. So yeah, I mean, that is nice. I mean, the top stocks so far, Tom, are definitely like Enphase, RUN, Spotify to the upside, and then there's not too many stocks deep in the red, but the ones that are, I would say UPS is definitely pulling back. But at the same time, UPS had a crazy recovery over the past month.
Yeah, they did. And those earnings were actually pretty good. Sorry about that, but they were pretty good for him yesterday. They had a pretty nice pop to the upside. And now they are pulling back very slightly. But as we can see, they are kind of right at that level that they consolidated at yesterday during pre-market, which is right around like 212. So if we could bounce off of 212, it could be a pretty nice little bit of a intraday bounce back. And if we can see, it is also like right around that 1,000 SMA. So hopefully it ends up holding up there and going back. Those earnings were pretty good, and I would expect a little bit of a move, but they did bounce right here at all-time highs. So it might be another like double top. And we've been seeing that quite a bit lately, where stocks have been hitting these resistances and then falling back down.
There we go. So welcome Connor, Mac, and Mason to the stream. We have Mac saying lucid to the moon. So this setup actually looks pretty good. They are breaking out. And Tom, they're up almost 10% on the day. And they're getting very close to that $30 resistance.
Man, they are. I've really been eyeing these guys up over the past week. They are exploding. It's been looking really good. Yesterday was looking pretty good too. They had a lot of stocks closed red yesterday, but I'll tell you what, the setup still looks pretty bullish, and a lot of them are popping back up today, looking pretty hot. And I'm really glad to see them still going up. And like you said, they're getting close to that resistance that we've bounced off of lots of other times here. As we can see on the daily chart, it's definitely a pretty big level. So I don't know, it's going to be pretty hard to say over the next couple of days. Like, do you think we can break $30? I think it's possible with the way these stocks are moving. And if we do see a break of that, maybe expect a little bit of a run there, but be pretty careful, because, like we saw with even PayPal and lots of other stocks, sometimes they hit these resistances and they might not, go down right away, but over the next like couple days, they definitely have a good shot to consolidate.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen tomorrow, but over the next month or so, I feel like there's a pretty good chance that we break 30.
Yeah, I think so too, especially with the way Tesla, lots of other stocks are moving. Like, if these stocks can continue to run, it's even like NIO, Enphase, these stocks are having really good moves off of earnings. And I feel like that there's really good potential out of these growth stocks, especially in these types of sectors.
There we go. All right, so we have Mason asking about BRPM. Supposed to merge with FaZe Clan when they go public. So, yeah, I heard about that. To be honest, I haven't been following it too much, but it's definitely something I'm going to look into. Looks like they're definitely a SPAC. So they had some hype yesterday. I don't really know what happened with them. It looks like it didn't catch on fire like DWAC, but I'll definitely look into them. I heard about them, but I just didn't look into the news too much.
Yeah, I actually looked into it a little bit. Apparently, this is a SPAC deal for that company, and it seemed like a pretty good deal. So, in the end, they said that it's like one of the first esports teams to get like a SPAC deal or a stock or come onto the market in any type of way. So that was pretty interesting. But in the end, it's really hard to say what this one's going to do. It's kind of like what Mike said, DWAC. It kind of ran up for the first couple days, and now it's just kind of consolidating pretty hard.
Gotcha. All right, and then Tom, how about this Hood action? Robinhood is down nearly 12%.
Yeah, it is actually down 12%. Not good. I know that they had those bad numbers yesterday. They had those subscriber, not subscriber numbers, but you could say like lower volatility than expected. I know that the trading volatility, especially in the crypto sector, they said was not doing quite as well as it has been over the past couple of years. So that was definitely interesting. And then I heard that they expected less funded accounts, and that's definitely bad news to see. You can see their EPS was negative 2.06. honestly, it was pretty bad. That estimate was only minus 1.37. So they definitely lost on that one quite a bit. And, the movement definitely shows it, down 11%. We can look on the daily chart. They were kind of right around support, and it looks like that just made them really break it.
Very interesting. So, I was expecting a lot more trading volume to come in given the crazy surge we saw with cryptos over the past couple months or so, and then even like with DWAC and all that stuff going on. So I was kind of surprised to see the lower trading volume, but that's how Robinhood makes their money, and if they're coming in a lot lower than expected, it'll definitely sink the stock.
Yeah, definitely. And I was expecting more volatility too. It just really seemed like it seemed like over the past couple of months we've been getting a lot more action. Tesla has been moving pretty well. We've had Amazon, Microsoft, Apple around all-time highs. Like the market's been doing pretty good. These growth stocks were starting to even pop off. So I don't know. To me it seemed like a pretty good time, but I guess the numbers are the facts, and that's just what we have to look at whenever the earnings come out. But that's exactly why we didn't play this before earnings. It was so risky, even though we thought that was going to happen. There's no point in trying to play that coin toss.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so good stuff there. I'm just doing a couple quick scans, and it looks like AMD is still going. I know that they had a pretty solid day yesterday. They came down, but look at this movement right from open. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah, this actually almost reminds me of Tesla. Like they reported pretty good earnings yesterday, and they reported some pretty good growth. And it looks like, it made them go down a little bit in pre-market and in after hours, but it looks like they're roaring back. We can go look at the daily chart. They keep making these new all-time highs, and I honestly love it. I love AMD. I think that they're an amazing company. I wish that they would have dipped down more so that I would have, bought in more of them. But in the end, they ended up just being a powerhouse running. I know Nvidia is another one that's been running up lately too, and it looks like they're kind of moving as well. But I know AMD had that awesome news. I know Intel had some pretty good news yesterday as well, and it looks like they're popping up very, very slightly. Nothing like AMD though. AMD had awesome earnings, and they've just been doing awesome in general, which is great to see. And I'm so glad to see that them popping like this. And I know that they had tons of great numbers. If you guys haven't seen the earnings report, go check it out, because the way they talked about growth and stuff like that, it's honestly a pretty good outlook for the next couple of years.
There we go. So between AMD and Nvidia, I would definitely say Nvidia is the powerhouse. And, I think it's interesting to see that Nvidia has been exploding, but, they don't have quite the same movement as AMD. But all in all, I still think that they are a great company and probably even better, would you say?
Yeah, I would say they're better too. And the main reason is because their graphics cards are a lot better, which are better for AI platforms, as so they say at least. And that's pretty good. And I know that that power also is used in Bitcoin mining. So I know that that's a pretty weird subject, because there's tons of different ways that stuff works. But I know that Nvidia and their graphics cards are like the king of almost like the tech sector right now.
There we go. So looking back at Thinkorswim, it looks like we're seeing some good action from Affirm, AFRM. This stock had a couple huge deals over the past couple months, and they're just slowly grinding their way to all-time highs. And in certain ways, it kind of reminds me of UPST, because it's been on like a crazy uptrend. And even when it has some pretty big red days, like it's almost always followed up by a green day. And speaking of UPST, they're coming back up.
Yeah, they are. Look at this, right at open, another nice green recovery. If they pass above 330, I think they could get a nice little pop back up today. And like we talked about, Mike, they always seem like they have these red days, and then it's always just followed up by a recovery. And like we saw in the past, they started to kind of sell off, and I feel like we're kind of like at that point right now. And if we see a couple of like green days come in and we start to set up, kind of like we set up at the beginning of October, I feel like that we could end up getting a little bit of recovery again. But especially with the way all these other stocks are moving, and they have earnings coming up. So if those earnings go well, kind of like they did last time, this stock could really get a good move.
There we go. So one setup I really wanted to talk about was Chewy, CHWY. The more I look at it, it's like one of my favorite setups right now. I still feel like it's at an awesome level. I know we talked about it, what was it, last week or the week before that, quite a bit when it was even lower. But I really like the setup right now. I think they're in a great industry, great sector, and I feel like that they're at a great price. More importantly, like they had an all-time high of around 120. Right now, it's at 70 or so. Like I feel like on a technical level, it looks pretty good, and I feel like now is a pretty good time to pick them up. I started slowly averaging into shares, and I plan on holding for a couple years.
Yeah, I actually like it right now too. I think it's at a great time. They're in a great sector, and I just think that with them being an online business, that's always a good thing. Obviously they're not retail driven, which I really like. A lot of retail companies like you would say like Petco or like PetSmart would worry me a little bit more than like Chewy would, even though they might be doing pretty good too. But in the end, I still like Chewy, and like you said, the technicals are my favorite thing about it. They bounce right off that $60 support. They're coming up right now to a pretty key $70 level. And I feel like that the way they're moving is pretty strong. If they end up breaking $70, I feel like eventually they're going to fill this gap here on the daily chart and eventually get back towards 90. So I really like it. And I feel like for shares and for selling puts, it's an amazing setup right now. And like I said, I just love the sector, and the technicals are just lining up so well.
There we go. Love to see that. And then one stock that's like kind of flying up under the radar is Coca-Cola. I know you wouldn't
Really?
expect any big movement from this one, but it's actually popping off. It's up nearly 3%. They reported earnings. And, I know this one, you probably won't see it, double anytime within the next 5 years, but it's like one of those like safer stocks. And the 3% move's pretty big.
Yeah, that actually is a pretty big move up, and I like how it's getting up towards $56. That's actually pretty nice level there, and it looks like 56 might be a bit of a resistance, but with the way it popped up with earnings, I would not be surprised to see it continue to run. And like you said, nice slow stock, but you honestly surprised me whenever you brought up KO. I mean, I was honestly like starstruck there.
Yeah, it's like we almost never talk about this one because it's not doing anything.
Yeah, like you can see over the past couple months, it just moved from 50 to 55. Like, man, it's so slow.
Yeah. All right. So we have Connor asking about Netflix. So NFLX, looking at this one, it is not doing anything. It's in one of those setups right now where I don't like it. I mean, I don't dislike it. It's just I don't want to be buying calls after it just went from like 620 up to 676. Yeah, so I definitely wouldn't buy calls on it, and at the same time, like, it doesn't even look that good for put. So it's really not a play for me. I don't like it for like a long position or a short position.
Yeah, I don't really either right now. And, I might like it for a bit of a short position just because, you're looking at a lot of pullbacks and stuff, but they're just a powerhouse. So it's hard to go against them. If it was something else, maybe, but honestly, I wouldn't look at it really for anything. I'm leaning more to the downside for today, but in general, I'm just, I don't think I'd play it either, Mike. They're just such a powerhouse. They're running up off of earnings, and they had all that Squid Game news and stuff. So I would not be surprised if they continued up either.
Yep. Alrighty. So yeah, lots of green momentum across the board. Connor's also asking about Boeing. I like this one for the long term. It's just like we talked about earlier, Tom. Like it just needs something to like light the fire for a new uptrend. Like it has no momentum.
Yeah, it really does. There's just nothing really going on with them. Unfortunately, we just keep seeing bad news come out. They had that bad Dreamliner news come out the other day. It wasn't really production problems. There was just like a flaw in the process or something like that. So they have to definitely see what's going on there. But they said it definitely costed them some money in their earnings here. So that's not a good thing to hear. And just looking at it in general, it's just been such a hard stock to trade lately. Like they're at this 210 support that's been holding up very well. Like if we go look at them on the max daily chart, they're at the 210 support. The thing I don't like is that they fell below this blue trend line. To me, that gives me a little bit of worrisome. I would think that they might fall down here because of that, but they're right on this support. So if they hold support, I'll like them. But if they end up breaking that 210 support pretty drastically down, I will look at them to the downside, at least in the short term. Especially with these bad earnings and everything, I would not be too surprised. And we're also seeing airlines go down, like maybe not today, but over the past couple of weeks in general, the whole sector just hasn't been doing too good.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, while we're speaking, we have Hood just tanking. They are now down 13%. They're breaking new lows. It's just looking brutal. Like you look at it intraday and look at it, it's just making new lows, like literally, and lots of volumes coming in as well. It's looking rough.
Yeah, definitely not good. Is this the all-time low? Nope. Yeah, we're not to all-time lows yet, but we're getting pretty close here actually on the
Yeah.
chart. So maybe we can look at that all-time low like 33.25. Maybe that'll end up being a pretty good support today. We're almost within $1 of that. So maybe we'll get a bounce there, but I don't know. Robinhood unfortunately has just not had too good of sentiment since it came on the market. Like it obviously had those first great couple of days, but after that it really slowed down.
Yeah. Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
know. And lots of people were probably betting on it right then, too.
Yeah, so hopefully we see a recovery with that one. It looks like Tesla is trying to pop back up. They are now up 3.5%, and they're not going down without a fight.
Yeah, they're not. I'm glad to see them kind of come up and break that 1050 area. I knew they had some trouble there right it open, and I'm glad to see them break that. I hope they can continue up today and start to retest that high of 1094. I know it's definitely going to be the bigger stock today again. They're definitely a powerhouse, and people have definitely been watching them a lot lately. So definitely look at it. I even had my parents talk about it, which is pretty surprising, given they don't even really get into stocks too much.
Gotcha. Huh, interesting. So yeah, that's crazy. Tom, we basically covered the top stocks so far. Like, what are some of your favorite setups?
Honestly, I've really been eyeing up some longer setups for the longer term right now, like KHC, which is like Kraft Heinz. I know they just reported earnings as well, and they beat their estimate a little bit. This is a very slow and steady stock as well. They had a really bad like past few years here with some bad sales numbers, bad management problems, and stuff like that. But Warren Buffett's actually a big holder of this, and it's honestly been doing pretty good over the past year, recovering up. And Warren Buffett's been pretty happy with how the management changed and everything like that. And I feel like it'll be pretty good for the long term. They pay a 4% dividend. Keep in mind, this is like a 3 to 5 year hold here. This is not anything in the short term. And I feel like that with inflation going up, this stock could do pretty well as stocks that just sell consumer products in general, like Kraft, you could say Clorox, maybe Nestle. Do you know Nestle's ticker, Mike?
I do not.
Yeah, I can't remember it. It's a very strange ticker, but either way, these stocks they all sell consumer products and tons of different food brands and stuff like that. And I feel like that they're just set to do pretty well with inflation going up. And a lot of people lately have been talking about what stocks to buy during a very inflationary period. And I feel like that these stocks you almost can't go wrong with, especially with how the consumer prices are set to go up. So I feel like they should be pretty good, but the thing that's scary is that over the past couple of years, these stocks have gotten beaten down. Like Clorox is on a pretty bad downtrend. KHC had those bad problems a couple of years ago. So, it's scary to see that, but I feel like that they have a lot of room to recover.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, when I initially look at KHC's chart, it looks pretty scary. But if Warren Buffett's still holding and he still likes it, that's good to see. And I don't see KHC going under. Like they're like thought to be like a pretty good value stock. So I guess we could follow Warren Buffett's quote here. Buy when others are fearful, and then or no, he says be greedy when others are fearful, in fearful when others are greedy. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's good, and the chart looks a little rough, but, it's ultimately a good thing to be buying when stocks are looking rough. Like, I bet a lot of people are thinking DraftKings looks bad right now, where I think the opposite. So it is what it is, and I'm excited to see how KHC performs over the next couple of years.
Yeah, me too. And it's just a lot of these stocks are set to do pretty good, like with inflation and stuff. And I really feel like that that they have a good possibility to go up as well, especially with some of those bigger players holding. Like you would think that some of these guys would maybe get out if they saw maybe some like really bad fundamental problems. And I got Nestle stock up here. It's NSRGY. Let's look that one up. I'm sure they're doing pretty good actually. Yeah, look at NSRGY. They're actually on fire, but they do a lot of other stuff as well. But I know that KHC and Clorox should do pretty decent at least. And keep in mind, it's a very long-term play. It's definitely like 3 to 5 years out. Keep in mind over the next couple of years, it could end up just consolidating here and not really moving too much. It's honestly been here since around 2018. So it could definitely stay here for a while longer. And it pays a decent dividend. So I feel like it's good for like the super long term. And I feel like this would be a really good one, maybe to put into like an IRA or something like that.
Good stuff. So thank you, Connor, for sharing that ticker as well. Tom, I know a lot of people are holding Palantir, including myself. What are your thoughts on the current state of Palantir? Like, at least on a technical level, like, what are your thoughts about like this chart action?
On the intraday, I actually like it. It's actually bouncing pretty good off of this like 25-30 support, and it looks like it's trying to get a pop back up today. It kind of reminds me of Tesla, how it's trying to come back up to that high of yesterday. And I feel like it might not be able to get there today, but as long as we hold these levels, I feel like there's a pretty good shot of it going up at least later this week. But I've been loving it on the daily chart. I feel like that we will be coming up and retesting at least like the 28 to 29 resistance over the next couple of days, or at least over the next couple of weeks. And they do have earnings coming up on November 9th. So definitely be aware of that. That'll probably move the stock pretty drastically. But I feel like that we might get a little bit of a pop up here, and that resistance might hold up. But we've hit that a couple of times. So I would definitely look for a nice breakout here if we can get one. It's really hard to say right now because Palantir's just been they've been consolidating for the past like month right here, and they started to look pretty good yesterday, and then now they're just selling off and just consolidating again. So it's just obviously I think with them it's just more of just like a longer term hold. Like right now, obviously you can always get in and time good day trades, but I feel like it's more of in like a longer term hold setup, because once they finally break this like $30 level, they're going to have a pretty drastic move up. And I think the question is more of just when it's going to happen, because they're in a great sector too, being like with AI and everything, like you just can't go wrong with it.
True, true. All right, and then another one I wanted to cover was Beyond, BYND. This one has definitely been struggling over the past year, and it's not really correlated to the market too much, but I feel like it's a unique play to at least look at. I've been thinking about getting like a small position, like definitely nothing too large, just something like small for the long term, but I have not pulled the trigger yet. And I'm kind of on the fence, like, to be honest with you. Like, the setup's just like, and it's just like, like, it's just not, like, great to me. But I feel like, hopefully, like, if we retest maybe, like, 80 or 75, that should be a good buying opportunity.
Yeah, I think it should be too. That's actually a pretty big support down there, right around 75. So hopefully it can go down back to there. And honestly, the earnings have just not been too good lately. If we look at the chart, they've honestly been going negative here on their EPS, which has just not been good, and they've been going below estimates, which is obviously pretty bad. So hopefully they don't do that again here. Hopefully they report something pretty good, because I feel like eventually this will do pretty good. It's just, I think the question with Beyond is just when, like they're in a very strange sector. And I feel like that for the long term, it'll do pretty good. It's just, in the short term, like they're just going to be all over the place, because, they might get a good deal with Burger King, and then, they might have bad sales numbers somewhere else, or, there's always like weird stuff that they could do. And I know that they were getting some good deals back in the beginning of them coming onto the market. But as of right now, it's definitely been slowing down. So I don't know. It's hard for me to say, Mike. Like, I'm with you. It's hard to pull the trigger right here, especially with it just breaking that big support.
Alrighty. Another one I was looking at was actually GM, but to the downside. It looks like they are definitely
Really?
taking a beating today. They're down 5%.
Wow, this one actually does look like a pretty good play to the downside, and that's not good to see. They even reported good earnings. They beat that estimate, but I'm betting that they had some pretty bad production problems, and I'm I'm guessing that the next quarter is not going to go too well. I know these production problems have been terrible. I know that them and Ford both have honestly been having some pretty bad production problems, even though the stocks have been doing good. They keep reporting these chip delays, and just I know Ford had to stop production on, I believe, the F-150s, and then some of those newer electric Mustangs, which definitely is not good. And I don't know what GM had to stop exactly, but not good to see this type of drop. And the EPS definitely got a lot worse than it was over the past few times. And that's probably because of all these delays and stuff going on.
Gotcha, gotcha. Looks like Microsoft is powering up as we speak. They are up over 3%, and this is still a pretty big move for Microsoft. Like, they're, one of the world's leading companies, and they've been doing nothing but go straight up. I mean, it's weird to even say this, but they're getting close to being up 50% on the year. Like, this is insane. Like, in the beginning of the year, they were trading for around, you can say, like $210, and now we're at $320. So we're getting there for sure. But talk about just crazy movement out of this stock. Like it's just it's going to the moon.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that Windows 11 must really be helping them because, man, that news seemed to really generate some good movement for this stock. And I'm glad to see him going up like this. I hope that Windows 11 ends up rolling out and being pretty awesome. I know I haven't seen too much about it yet, but we'll definitely have to see it. It kind of reminded me from what I saw at first glance. It reminded me a lot more of like Apple's setup. So I don't know, it definitely seemed like a big change though. So we'll have to see what happens. But I know that anytime they release a new Windows product, that definitely helps Microsoft out big time. That's a pretty big monetary gain for them. And that's where they make a lot of their money from. So I know that's a pretty big thing. And I love their stock for the long term. And I'm glad to see it continue to go up. And, they're just showing that they've been a powerhouse for the past 20 years. And I think they're just continuing to show their strength.
Yep. Vicky said spot is flying. So, yeah, it's having a pretty good day. It's up 6%. I know it's definitely pulling back intraday. Like they were at like 278 closer to open. Now they're at like 267. But I love to see this movement. I think they'll be pretty solid for the long term. And it's awesome to see this. And I would say like the stock that's really flying, Tom, is Enphase. Like now they're up over 25%.
Yeah, they really are. Look at that. On the daily chart, Enphase is almost up to new all-time highs, actually. Like, if we get another good move like this tomorrow, we'll be at all-time highs. Like, I cannot believe we're getting up to this 220 resistance. Be a little careful because I think this resistance is going to definitely come into play today. We might break it later on, but definitely look at it for a quick bounce. Looks like we're actually almost there. So definitely be careful with it. But I love Enphase right now. This is a crazy move, Mike. Never thought I'd say that this stock was up 25% today. But, I feel like that a lot of these stocks like Enphase, Neo, Palantir, stocks like that, it just takes until that one good earnings report comes out, till that one good piece of news drops, and then they finally get that big move. So guys, that's why I feel like buying shares of these low is so important. Kind of like what we have good opportunities right now with a lot of other stocks. And I feel like that Enphase right now is honestly just showing what these other stocks are capable of. And I'd love to see it with Enphase, and it just it looks pretty good.
Yeah, and I was looking at some of the calls on Enphase today. They're up easily like 1,000%, like a lot of them at least, like the weeklies. Some of them were up like 900%, and then some of them are up like 1,400%, which is just crazy to say. Like I guess you could say like 10 extra money in a day. So that's insane. But I love to see this movement. I'm a fan of Enphase, also a fan of Run. They're basically in the same sector, and if you just wanted to diversify, you can just buy TAN. This is an ETF, basically a solar ETF, and it holds some of like the top solar stocks. So I think that would definitely be the way to go.
Yeah, I think so too. They're an amazing setups. And I love all these stocks for the long term. And then even the short term, they're starting to really run. They've been in such awesome bullish setups over the past couple of weeks. And especially even this week, they were consolidating, but they were honestly looking like some amazing bullish flag setups here. I think the market had a lot of strength over the past week. And I'm just glad to see all these growth stocks continue up. I know that the powerhouses are going up too, like Microsoft and other ones like that. Even Coca-Cola is going up. Like, it just seems like just about everything's up right now, except for Twitter. Twitter unfortunately had a pretty bad earnings. They're down like 8%. A couple stocks are down pretty drastically, but for the most part, we're seeing pretty good explosions.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So Twitter's tanking off. Like even on a day where a lot of stocks are popping, even Facebook is struggling. Like they're definitely not looking too good. At the same time, Snapchat is down 2%, so that one's also looking a little bit rough. Disney is struggling a little bit as well. They're not crashing by any means, but they're kind of like a Boeing in the sense that Disney, it's just like it just doesn't have any momentum. You know what I mean? Like they're a solid stock, solid company. You can say the same thing about Boeing, but the stock has no momentum. Like it has no hype. It has no catalyst, So hopefully their upcoming earnings report can change that, because I've been watching this one for a while, and I'm waiting for that breakout.
Yeah, it's definitely a really tough one right now. Like, they're down by this support. Like, that earnings will probably either make them break support or fly up through it. So hopefully it gives us a good insight into how they're going to move, at least over the next couple of months. And I'm really hoping it's to the upside. And maybe they'll report some good Disney Plus subscriber growth, or, something like that over this next, on this next report. So I feel like with Disney, it's just a waiting game, like even if they break support and they go down a little bit longer, in the longer term, I feel like that they'll eventually get that nice explosion up. They just need some good numbers, or like a good show like Squid Game or something like that to come out. And I think that they'll recover just fine. But kind of going back to like Twitter and Facebook, man, these stocks are just starting to really get hurt in the short term. And I don't know, like about, everyone's talking about like the ad problems and everything like that, but I don't know. At the same time, I'm starting to feel like it's just a lot of people really just starting to lose trust and sentiment in these companies. I don't know like how you feel about that, Mike, or let me know in the chat how you guys feel about this. But I feel like that these companies have been getting a lot of flack lately, not just because of the politics, but also because of just like selling people's information, obviously like doing weird stuff like with ads and almost stuff that's like morally wrong. I don't know if you guys have seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix or not, where they kind of talk about how Facebook like targets people with ads, and they do it in a very strange like methodical way where they'll like get really weird with stuff. So definitely check that movie out if you guys haven't seen it. It's called The Social Dilemma. Pretty interesting, but I feel like this in general, like investors and people are just losing confidence in these stocks. And there's like whistleblowers coming out, Congress is starting to investigate this stuff, and it just seems like a really bad bad couple of months for these stocks, unfortunately. And I feel, people keep saying like, should we buy the dip? Should we buy the dip? And I feel like that you should, but at the same time, with the new social media platform coming out over the next couple of years, and with all these investigations going on, like it seems like I'd love to buy the dip on these stocks because I like them and I use the platforms, but I feel like that with all this stuff going on, it's just hard to do it right now.
Yeah, so I was reading something the other day that was basically covering Facebook's early days. And Mark Zuckerberg, I believe, ended almost like every meeting, or like he would constantly say company over country, and that just shows you, like what the mindset can be behind, some of these top tech executives. I just think it's interesting, if we're being objective, the social media companies have crushed it over the past 10 years, 20 years, even the past 5 years. Like they're growing at exponential rates, and I'm sure we could see that in their stock prices. Like even looking at Snapchat, like I know they're not they normally don't get I don't know, like the flack that like Facebook or Twitter get, but still, like they went from $4 up to 83 in what, the past 2 years or so. What is it? Yeah, past 2, or yeah, I guess you say past 3 years. So they're growing at exponential rates, and I'm just curious. I'm curious to see what their future looks like because like you said, Tom, I feel like there's definitely a growing, I guess you could say, like lack of trust with these tech companies, or specifically social media companies.
Yeah, there really is. And if something changes, like obviously like these companies might see this and they might adapt. Like we might see them maybe welcome Congress into, maybe regulating them or something. Like I don't know, something will probably end up happening over the next couple of years though. And it's definitely a really interesting scenario going forward. And like you said, they've been on such great uptrends that it's just be so weird to see him start to fall like this. And I hope that it's not because of the trust issues. I hope it's just because of like Snap's earnings and stuff like that. A lot of people are just saying it's simply because of the earnings, and maybe that's the truth. But in the end, it just seems like a pretty bad like scenario. And I feel like, I feel like for like the next 5 years, they'll end up doing pretty good. It's just for the next year or two, it's just very questionable to me.
Gotcha. We have Connor saying social is so dirty. Social is the new Lunkin. So I know Luke and Coffee took a beating a couple years ago. I don't know if you remember that one, Tom. I don't even know what the ticker is nowadays, but
Yeah.
they got screwed over pretty bad. So yeah, I mean, I definitely know what you mean, and we're in some interesting times right now, to say the least. But all in all, Twitter and Snapchat are definitely breaking their lows right now. Even Pinterest is struggling, Tom. Like I know that their deal with PayPal kind of fell through, but wow, they're really selling off.
Yeah, that was actually a really unfortunate thing to happen to Pinterest. I'll be honest, the CEO of Pinterest is probably pissed right now.
Yeah.
Like, man, he could Man, could you imagine how angry these people must be at Pinterest? Like
Yeah,
their stock just flew up on that news and they were probably so happy. And then now it's breaking support. Like, man, they broke that really big $50 support. I don't even see any like big supports coming up until like 43, maybe $40 down here. Like, man, like this is a pretty bad sell off happening.
for sure. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people probably got burned like buying up Pinterest shares, right? Like kind of like figuring that they were gonna, be acquired by PayPal, but that was not the case. So
Yeah, that's why it's always rumors. Like whenever you guys see these things and until you see the final words, like the deal went through, it's just a rumor. Like
yeah,
they'll always say like they're in talks, they're in talks. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. Lots of people like to buy those up on speculation, but this just goes to show you like sometimes it burns you when that happens.
exactly. I mean, honestly, I didn't think DraftKings was gonna abandon the Entain deal. Like I don't care that they did, but they had that news just lingering for what 1 or 2 months or something, and then they just came out of nowhere and said, "Yeah, we don't want them anymore." No one was expecting that.
Yeah, that was actually really strange to see, and I don't know what happened. Maybe Intane was charging too much because I know Intane was like coming back to him like with weird like offers and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe it just came down to money, but yeah, I definitely did not expect it either. And it's so weird to me how this happened. Also, right after that PayPal and Pinterest deal happened, it's almost like DraftKings saw it and then they were like, "Hey, we're gonna do it too to make our stock go up."
Yeah, I mean I know that like sometimes like some of the executives at some of these companies definitely time certain company events and things like that. So very interesting overall. I'm waiting for my DraftKings stock to turn around. It's just been consolidating slash falling for what, a month now, so a month or 2 months. So waiting for that turnaround. They do have earnings relatively soon, so that should be good. So I look forward to that. But just checking back in on some of these top stocks today. Of course, Enphase is still up a good amount, but they are pulling back just a little bit. Spotify is still holding its ground. Chewy's not looking too bad. So we covered basically all the top stocks today. Tom, do you have like any last things you're looking at, or like any last minute things you wanted to cover?
One thing to kind of keep an eye on is still these big banks. They've still been running up a lot lately. Like we can look at JP Morgan. They're like making all-time highs. And at some point, I feel like that they might start to pull back or at least start to pull back down a little bit. So I would definitely look at these a little bit. If they break all-time highs, you might be able to play some pretty good runs on them. But if they hit some like good resistances and you see them start to fall, we might be able to get into some pretty good plays to the downside. Now, obviously, like Bank of America is more of like one I'm looking at than JP Morgan. You can see how much they've ran up lately, and they're a powerhouse. So definitely wait a little bit until you see the downturn. But I feel like at some point, these stocks will start to pull back. And just looking at the banks, they had pretty decent earnings last time, and with rates going up and stuff, that might help them. So just be careful with it. But I feel like that they're definitely a good thing to look at, especially Bank of America. Like if we break this new high today, it could be a pretty good quick scalp play to the upside. If you see it hit this 48, 43 resistance and it gets a quick bounce down, it could also be a quick scalp play to the downside. I feel like they're definitely having some good movement lately.
All right, and then we have Vicky saying, guys, 3 billion people in the Facebook platform, most outside the US, that don't care about lies for the most part. Who believes on that whistleblower setup interviewed on 60 Minutes in 3 days after in Congress? So I guess we'll see with the upcoming Facebook earnings reports throughout the rest of the year and like even in the next year, like if we see their daily active users decrease, I think that could be a big sign. But there's no doubt that Facebook is a very smart company. They've done extremely well over the past ever since they really started. They're growing at a crazy pace and they're very smart, and I definitely give them that. But it's definitely something that I'm at least a little bit concerned about. And ultimately, we'll know if people are saying screw Facebook through their earnings reports. Like if we see their user growth or their user base slow down or leave, I think that could be a big sign. And if it stays stagnant or even increases, then I think that would also show us that, hey, no one cares, and they're going to continue to use Facebook. So I think that's a great piece of information, Vicky.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool to see too, actually. And I think that Facebook should do pretty good in the long term. And, Facebook uses a lot of algorithms, right? So you would think that in the end, some type of algorithm there would be telling them to change. You know what I mean? Like if the
maybe.
stock keeps going down and stuff, like you would think they'd have some type of people, at least, some higher ups and different stuff like that. They're definitely someone that they would rather adapt than die, I think. So
Oh yeah.
that's my main thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're a very smart company, no doubt about that. I'm just curious to see, kind of like Vicky said, like 3 billion people in the Facebook platform, most outside the U.S. that don't care about the lies for the most part, and I think we're really gonna see if that's true or false over the next couple of years. Like, I think it's interesting how Trump's SPAC company or his new social media company launched, and at the same time, some other tech stocks are taking a hit. So, I just think it's something to pay attention to. I don't think Facebook's going to go to zero by in 2 years from now, but I just think it's something that's very interesting and a trend to definitely keep on your radar. So all in all, thank you guys so much for joining today. Thanks for the great input, Vicky. We definitely appreciate it. Thank you, Connor, for all the activity today. And again, thank you guys so much for joining, and have an amazing rest of your day.